You know, the modern world basically runs on batteries, but the very technology that powers our phones, our laptops, and our cars, well, it's starting to show its limits. So today, we're going to dig into what comes next. We'll separate the real-world solutions that you can get right now from the revolutionary promises that are still just over the horizon. Let's dive in.
Right now, we are absolutely living in the lithium age. Lithium-ion batteries are in everything. They've defined the last, 2 or 3 decades of technology. But that story is far from over. And it begs the question, what's the next chapter? What technology is actually ready to take the crown from lithium?
Before we jump into the cool new stuff, we've got to understand why we need it so badly. See, this global push to electrify everything is creating an absolutely massive demand for batteries. And our current tech, it's really struggling to keep up. This is what the experts call the battery bottleneck.
Now, here's the thing. All of these problems are tangled together. Lithium is a pretty scarce resource, right? That means its price can swing wildly, and it creates all sorts of geopolitical tension over who controls the supply. Then you get to the tech itself. I mean, if you've ever driven an EV in a really cold place, you know that feeling when your range just plummets. These are the real-world limitations that are fueling this desperate search for something better.
And that search brings us to our first major contender. And listen, this isn't some far-off lab experiment or a future promise. This is a real-world solution that's already rolling off production lines. So let's talk about sodium-ion batteries.
This is a really big deal. CATL, the biggest battery maker on the planet, is now mass-producing these things, and we're not talking about prototypes. This is a commercial product, mainly for things like commercial trucks and vans, where predictable costs and rock-solid reliability are absolutely everything.
So why sodium? Well, it's pretty simple. It directly attacks lithium's biggest weaknesses. Sodium is literally everywhere. I mean, think table salt. It's thousands of times more abundant and way cheaper to get out of the ground. That totally changes the game, right? It breaks that dependency on just a few mining hotspots and slashes the cost. And maybe most importantly, it actually works great when it gets really cold.
And here's the stat to prove it. At a bone-chilling minus 40 degrees Celsius, CATL's sodium-ion battery holds on to 90% of its capacity. For anyone running a fleet of delivery vans or trucks in a cold climate, this is a total game changer. It solves a massive operational headache.
And this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. CATL is actually making 4 different versions tailored for specific jobs. You've got one built for extreme cold, another for delivery fleets that need to recharge super fast, one for long-haul trucking, and even a version with special cooling for last-mile delivery in scorching hot climates. It's a smart, versatile, and cost-effective solution that's here today.
Okay, so that's the practical solution for today. Now let's shift gears and talk about the revolutionary tech of tomorrow. This is the one you've probably heard all the hype about. The one that promises to change, well, everything. Let's talk about the solid-state battery.
And the numbers they're talking about are just staggering. Toyota is talking about a potential range of 1,200 kilometers. That's over 750 miles on a single charge. That's like driving from New York City all the way to Chicago without stopping. For basically everyone, that would kill range anxiety, period.
And then there's the charging. The goal that everyone from giants like Toyota to startups like Donut Lab is chasing is a charge time of about 10 minutes. Think about that. That's pretty much the same amount of time it takes to fill your car up with gas. This right here would tear down one of the last big hurdles for people switching to EVs.
So how is this even possible? Well, it all comes down to something called energy density. Solid-state batteries can potentially pack more than double the energy into the exact same space. So car makers get a choice. They can either give you a car with a ridiculously long range, or they can give you today's range, but with a battery pack that's way smaller, lighter, and cheaper. It's a genuine paradigm shift.
So, if this stuff is so amazing, why don't we all have one in our cars already? Well, because between the brilliant idea in the lab and the car rolling off the assembly line, there stands a massive wall of incredibly difficult science and engineering.
First off, let's get on the same page. What is a solid-state battery? The key difference, the big secret, is the electrolyte. That's the stuff the ions travel through. In our current batteries, it's a flammable liquid or gel. In a solid-state battery, it's, well, a solid. And that one change is the source of all the amazing benefits and all the massive problems.
This quote here really gets to the heart of the problem. You see, when a battery charges and discharges, the materials inside actually expand and contract a tiny bit. In a liquid, who cares? But when everything's solid, that movement can cause microscopic cracks. The parts can lose contact with each other, and poof, the battery just stops working.
So the scientists working on this are staring down 3 huge challenges.
First, how do you keep all those solid parts perfectly pressed together without using some insane amount of pressure that would be impossible in a car? Second, you have to stop these nasty little lithium spikes called dendrites from growing right through the solid material and causing a short circuit. And third, you just have to make it easier for the ions to move. It's kind of like trying to run through a dense forest versus an open field. It's that difference they're trying to solve at a microscopic level.
Okay, so knowing all of that, what's a realistic timeline here? When can we actually expect to see these things in cars we can buy? Let's try and decode the roadmaps that the big companies are putting out there.
Well, the consensus seems to be a slow and steady rollout. We'll probably see the very first small-scale production around 2026, and they'll likely show up in super high-end hybrid cars first. Then big players like Samsung and Toyota are shooting for 2027 to start mass production for top-of-the-line EVs. But for the rest of us, we're probably looking at 2030 or even later before the tech is common and affordable enough for the mainstream market. And believe me, this is a global race with some huge names. Toyota is a clear leader with over 1,000 patents in this area. Samsung is pushing hard for that 2027 date. You've got CATL, who is dominating with sodium-ion right now, but you can bet they're pouring money into solid-state research. Then there are startups like Donut Lab pushing the envelope. And of course, you can't forget the foundational work of people like the late John B. Goodenough, the guy who invented the lithium-ion battery in the first place.
So here we are. We've got sodium-ion, a practical solution that's making a real difference today, and we've got solid-state, a truly revolutionary technology, coming up on the horizon. The very way we store and use energy is about to change in a fundamental way. And this isn't just about cars. This could unlock brand new possibilities in everything from our gadgets to storing power for the entire grid. So the real question is, once we finally have something like a limitless portable power source, what new things will we invent? What will we power next?